It's a beautiful Friday morning and there's a lot to do in the garden today. So first I'm gonna walk you through and show you a couple of the cool things happening right now. First off, the transplants like this squash right here are doing amazing, and I'm gonna show you one in the garden beds. I think they really like the temps that have been going on right now, but I see a dried up bloom. This is one of the male flowers. It hasn't started pushing out female ones, but it will soon. And it's only a matter of weeks before we actually start to get some production from these. And in the meantime, once I see a couple more of the male flowers coming out, I'm going to start picking them because I grew up eating quesadillas made with those type of flowers. So I'm very excited for that. That's one thing that I've been waiting for since forever. Also, a lot of these peas are coming out. So this one, for example, looks pretty good. It's starting to produce up here. Let's pick one. And for the most part, it looks great. However, when we come down here, I can start to see some powdery mildew forming. And in the past, whenever I've tried to control the powdery mildew, I'm not very successful at it. I can maybe hold it back a bit more, but it spreads very fast, especially with the fluctuations in weather that we've been having. And you can see some more right there. The main reason I want to take it out now is because it's right next to my squash and I want to make sure that that doesn't get powdery mildew. And for some reason, it went from being completely dry to then raining one day, and then the same thing keeps happening. So I just want to make sure that I eliminate the powdery mildew. And the past few days we had a high of 88, and I know the sugar snap peas aren't going to be around for very much longer, so I might as well just take some of the vines out now. I'm not going to take everything out, just the ones that I see starting to develop that powdery mildew. If we come over here, we can see some of those spores right there as well. And this vine looks great for the most part, but it hasn't really been very productive. So I feel like there's no point in risking the other plants for 5 or 6 sugar snap peas. Something very exciting happening right now is my Thompson's green grapevine is starting to leaf out, and it looks beautiful. So this was one of the grapevines that was super vigorous. I bought it from Nursery. I actually bought a flame seedless and a Thompson's green seedless grapevine. The Thompsons did amazing, but the flame seedless hardly grew. The root systems on both of these plants were very vigorous. They looked incredible, so I thought both varieties would take off. I think they were about $10 a piece, so they weren't really expensive. What really wound up costing me a bit was the shipping. I wasn't aware of how expensive the shipping would be. Had I known, I would have just waited and purchased them locally. And the worst part is that literally maybe about 2 or 3 weeks after buying these, I found the exact same varieties at Walmart for around $5 or $6. So this is what the Walmart one looks like. And who knows, maybe this year it'll really take off. It looks like it's starting to break dormancy right there. As you can see, it looks really pretty. And then over here, hidden amongst these sugar snap peas, is the $5 grapevine that I got from Walmart. And this one you can see is a lot thicker. I've already started training it to go this way across the trellis, and then I'm going to take another cordon and I'm going to train it to go this way. That way I can start creating spurs and then train it to go up the trellis. I don't even know if that makes sense, but for $5 I got a much better grapevine over on this side. So yeah, that was definitely a huge learning lesson for me of just being a little bit more patient. And now I know that around January or February we'll see them in stock in garden centers and also in big box stores. And here's the Thompson's green seedless grapevine from Walmart that was also $5. And look at this thing. It's just as vigorous as the ones I bought from the nursery. So I definitely could have saved myself quite a bit of money, but it's fine. They still look amazing. And I was thinking about purchasing another flame seedless grapevine to replace the one I bought from Nursery. But because the one I bought from them is already breaking dormancy, I feel like there's really no need to do that. I just have to be a little patient, and maybe it just takes a little bit more time for those grapevines to get established. I did try propagating some a few months ago, and I wasn't really successful with the flame variety, but the Thompson's green grapevines did amazing. Let me show you a few of them. The video should be up soon, but this is what they look like right now. They look amazing. Look at all of those. So these are all clones from my grapevines, and they took a few weeks to take, but the root systems on them were incredible. So I'm pretty confident that these will be successful. You can also see all my fig cuttings behind them, which also look very beautiful. And then let's address what's going on over here. There is no longer a trampoline in my backyard. So the trampoline has already been sold to a family member, and in its place, my husband is going to build a clubhouse for the kids. They've been asking for a clubhouse for a while now, so my husband is going to try and build them one this year. Over here, I have my hot plum, or the Spondias Momben, which is finally outside. It was in the grow tent throughout the winter time. The nursery that I bought it from recommended to keep it inside until it's well above 40 degrees, and it had been. Our highs had been around 88, 89. And our lows had been in the high 50s, and then it dipped down to the low 30s, and it's gonna be that way for the next few days. So it's out here for now, but if I need to, I'll bring it in at night, but that way it starts getting acclimated to being outside, because the grow tent was nice and warm and humid, and now out here it's gonna be a little bit more dry and definitely much hotter. Do you guys remember those tomatillos and how they looked a few days ago? They have really put on a ton of growth since then. Now both of them have a lot of flowers going on. It seems like they're growing half a foot a week, which is really cool. That makes me very happy. Here's what the Pakistan mulberry looks like after I pruned it back, which was definitely a little bit scary to do, but I'm glad I did because look at how much growth it put in about a week. Here's something interesting. Do you guys remember this tomato tomato and how I had staked it up? You can't even see the top of the stake anymore. It already surpassed it. And now I'm gonna have to top it off because it can't get any taller than that. I don't want to keep extending the stake just because that's gonna be way too cumbersome to go up there and have to harvest from up there. So that's about as tall as it's gonna get. It does make me happy to see though that there's a lot of tomatoes starting to ripen on there, and the size of these is insane. Last year when I was harvesting them, I don't remember them ever being that big, and even earlier on in the season when I was harvesting, they were like a third of this size. And now they've really grown a ton. Oh, wait. There's a ripe one right here. Okay, like, look at this one. Look at the size of this one compared to these. Can you, I don't know if you're able to tell, but it's much smaller. Definitely much smaller. Let me test this out. It's so refreshing. I feel like this variety would be perfect with a little bit of salt on it, but my all-time favorite variety is still the sun gold. Is it called sun gold? Yeah, but my favorite variety is still the sun gold. I feel like those are perfect as they are. They taste really sweet. They're juicy. They remind me of like little candies. Something else I also wanted to show you guys is this Bougainvillea. It looks like it's finally starting to bloom a little bit more, which makes me very happy. I actually went ahead and started watering it a bit more. I'd put off watering it for a few weeks, hoping that that would encourage it to bloom, but I feel like also with our weather, it just wasn't time for it to bloom yet. So now it's getting watered about every 4 days, which I think is good because it's in a container, it's not in ground, and it's been pushing out so much more growth. Another thing that I did a few days ago though, was I cut off a couple of these thorns. I had a few seconds where I thought about taking this vine out. And the only reason being that I was scared that my kids would get hurt on it, because I got cut up pretty badly with one of these thorns, and because it's the entry to the garden, if they're running through and they're not careful, they can easily get a deep gash with these. These thorns are so sharp, you guys. The main reason I wanted it to cover this arbor is because my mom used to have a Bougainvillea in her front yard up against the house, and I wanted to take some of those elements and put them into my garden. But as it's continued to grow and put on a ton of thorns, I also have to think about the safety of my kids. For example, the star jasmine on that side is perfectly fine. Even if it grows a little bit out of control, it doesn't have any thorns, so as they run through, they're just gonna brush up against leaves. And as you can see, I cut off several of these, and even with those little stubs, they're pretty sharp. So I don't know, you guys. I love this vine, but I might wind up moving it somewhere else where it's flat up against the wall. That way there's no chance of them coming out here and hurting themselves, because it hurt pretty bad. The more I talked about it, ow, the more freaked out I got when I thought about my kids possibly running into this Bougainvillea. And I started brainstorming about where I could move it to, but honestly, I really like this location. So I think what I'm gonna try to do first is retrain it right now. And instead of intertwining them with the trellis, I'm gonna have them all on this side where my kids can't get to. That way the thorns aren't coming out, and maybe that'll make it a little bit safer. I'm also gonna take some like this one and keep them all clustered in this little section back here. So I'm gonna start off by untying all of them. So like this one, for example. Ooh. I'm gonna start pulling it out slowly. So many thorns. There you go. And I'm not using my gloves right now just so I have a little bit more dexterity. And so I'm able to actually untie these. Hi, love. I'm trying really hard not to break any of these vines because they've become quite woody. Okay, I don't think I can get this one back out. Darn it. Because it's become too woody down here to where it's not flexible at all. Okay, I'm gonna move it now before it becomes too established. It's such a beautiful plant, you guys, but I just can't, I can't have my kids getting hurt. And if I'm getting hurt just walking past it, they're constantly running in and out of the garden. And I know I'm gonna feel really guilty if something winds up happening to them because I didn't move this plant when I should have. First, I'm removing all of the mulch. And I don't know what I'm gonna replace it with yet, most likely coral vine. I could also put a passion fruit over here, but those grow so fast I feel like it would cover the trellis far too quickly. There we go. I'm gonna shake off any excess soil. And that's the root systems on this plant. They're really good. Beautiful even. So I transplanted the Bougainvillea to my front yard. And I didn't show the process because I don't really like showing the front of my house. But it's in a new location now. So I'm gonna refill this with some potting soil. And I think I'm gonna pop a coral vine in here. And I'm gonna place a coral vine right here. Thankfully I have a start right here ready to go. So I'm just gonna pop it in. I'm gonna press the soil in around it. There we go. It's kind of hard to see because it's still so small, but I've heard that coral vine grows very quickly as well. And it's got some really nice delicate pink blooms. So we'll still have a similar color scheme going on, just without the thorns. Okay, and this guy is good to go. Next, I'm gonna start cleaning up the garden beds. So here you can see some broccoli that has started bolting. I left it in just to see what size of head it produced, but as you can see, the head was really small and it immediately started bolting, I think because it's heating up too much. So I'm just gonna remove the entire plant to make room for other things like the sunflower. This is a volunteer. I feel like I have a ton of sunflower and zinnia volunteers, which is great because I didn't start any flowers this year. So I'm gonna cut it at the base. And I'm not gonna let it go to seed just because I have so many other things popping up. And I also wanna remulch the garden beds today. And while I'm over here, I'm also going to remove any sweet peas that showed signs of powdery mildew. Sorry. So this one right here is a Nero de Toscana cabbage. And if I open up the leaves, you guys can see all of those cabbage aphids right there as well. So I'm just gonna take it out. There's no point in keeping things like that because all it's gonna do is create a good environment for pests. And then those pests can start spreading to everything else that's healthy in the garden. It's just not the season for them anymore. Our winters are very short. It's already heating up far too quickly. So I need to make sure I stay on top of all the pests. This one's still gonna stay here because it looks beautiful. Look at the size of these leaves. This one is gonna stay because I don't really see any pests on it. Hopefully we get something to start growing. But if I do see any pests starting to flock over here, I'm gonna remove it from the garden as well. Back here we have a broccoli which is already starting to separate. Like the size of this head is so tiny. So I'm gonna pick it now. Sometimes when you let it bolt, it gets bitter. So we're gonna try and see if it still tastes good and then the rest of the plant will come out. Same goes for these sugar snap peas. I see powdery mildew spores on all the bottom leaves, so it's coming out. Look at those spores right there. They can easily spread within like 2 to 3 days. The entire plant could be covered. And because I have other things growing here, I don't want any of my squash or cucumbers or anything else getting that powdery mildew too.